inspiration. Join us online at www.latinomotion.tv. Find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We encourage your comments and contributions for show topics.
Welcome back to Latino Motion. Good nutrition is important for everyone, but with high risk of chronic disease, Hispanics need to take good note of good nutritional strategies for good health. Joining me is Kelly Burgess. She is a registered dietitian to discuss this important topic. Kelly, welcome to Latino Motion.
Thank you very much for having me, Bert.
You're a registered dietitian,
Yes.
and we're not just going to talk about good eating habits. There's a lot of things involved with good health that a dietitian would work with individuals to achieve. And let's talk about the real issue, particularly within the Latino community. Tell me a little bit about what the big issue is in the Latino community.
Well, we have 54 million Latinos that live here in the United States of America. And one of the major issues is that we have close to 17% that are in poor health. So it's important to people who are in poor health or those who are family members taking care of those individuals in poor health.
Let me just analyze those numbers a little bit.
Yes.
Because what we're saying is that of the 54 million, 17% are in poor health. So,
Yes.
and how does that compare to non-Latinos?
Well, in the non-Latino community, there's actually less people that are in poor health, so it's really a huge impact on the Latino community. And it can be expensive for the individual, expensive for the family, as well as the community to help care for those individuals.
Now, and I know that you gave me some statistics in terms of where that breaks down. So it's nearly 17% for all Hispanics, but it seems like Puerto Ricans are at 19% and Mexicans 17%, significantly higher than the rest of the group. Do you know why this is attributed to that particular group?
Well, one of the things that we've looked at in the past when the Center for Disease Control does a lot of their studies is we look at the rate of overweight and obesity in the community. And it's problematic when you have a large percentage of the community that is overweight because weight does contribute to chronic disease. So we have in the Hispanic community, there's about 77%, or actually 78.6% of the population.
8 out of 10 Latinos.
Yes, 8 out of 10 Latinos who are overweight, absolutely. And that is very problematic. And for men, there's actually a little bit higher rate than there is for women. And that's a little bit different in some of the other populations, but this is what we're seeing in the Latino community, in the Hispanic
So let's talk about some of those chronic diseases, high blood pressure being one of them. Tell me a little bit about the other factors.
There's some other factors, also diabetes, which is a problem for most Americans in the United States. It's a growing problem, but in the Latino community, we have high blood pressure that shows up. Diabetes is a problem. We also have chronic diseases, like multiple chronic diseases that also may be showing up, like emphysema, asthma, heart disease, and also stroke, kidney disease.
Well, let's go back to the diabetes because you have some interesting data. It's 12.8% of all Latinos suffer from diabetes.
Yes.
And that number is significantly higher it's nearly 15% for Puerto Ricans, and the other nationalities pretty much on single digits.
Yeah.
Again, the same factors in terms of the overweight and other
and
factors.
the obesity. And when it comes to overweight and obesity, it's really the fat that we keep in the center of our bodies, right in the belly fat. That is very much a problem because it ends up causing problems with the organs that are in that area. And that ends up affecting how our pancreas works and pushes up the rate of blood sugar that's in the system. And it comes to also what type of food that we're eating too that adds and contributes to that problem.
And you mentioned the fact that there's multiple chronic conditions that they do exist. And some of these conditions are also preventing people from either working or from really socializing to some extent. Tell me a little bit about those factors.
And it's really sad when we want to provide for our families and we can't because of chronic disease. That is very much a problem. We're looking at about 5% of the 54 million Hispanics that live in the United States of America who cannot work because they're so ill. And that's very sad. And even of the 54 million too, there's about 4%, a little bit almost 4.5%, close to that can't socialize. And part of the community is really having time to socialize and be with your family members and your friends and your community. And if you can't participate, that's also very depressing for the individual.
Again, a big factor here, the Puerto Ricans are 11.4% of
Yes.
that group that cannot work, whereas the other groups are in single digits,
Exactly.
the highest being 4.8 for Mexicans. So it's a significant difference there in terms of depending where you're from in Latin America.
It does. There is a significant difference there. I want to point also something about even with our pediatric population in the Hispanic community, because we see that about 40% of young boys are overweight or obese, and about 37% of young girls are overweight or obese. And the problem with that is that sets up these children for the future. And what we want to have is a very healthy life for our families. We don't want to start the chronic disease early. So really managing the weight and managing the chronic illness and what we do in the household is very, very important.
So we're going to take a quick break, and that's one of the things that we want to come back and discuss, some of the strategies that we need to implement to get better and not be part of these statistics.
Absolutely.
We'll be right back with more Latino Motion.
Latino Motion with Bert Lopez is presented by Latino Motion Public Affairs Media, a New Jersey nonprofit corporation. Join us online at www.latinomotion.tv. Find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We encourage your comments and contributions for show topics.
Welcome back to Latino Motion. We'll continue our discussion with Kelly Burgess, a registered dietitian, on the importance of nutritional strategies for good health. And Kelly, we were just talking about the seriousness of the chronic diseases that exist within the Latino community, and obviously there needs to be a strategy in place to correct that. Let's start off with the obvious issue in terms of the overweight, and obviously losing the weight should be part of that strategy. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, weight is definitely an issue, and losing weight is an absolutely fantastic strategy. The federal government recommends that if we are overweight or obese, that we start by trying to lose about 5 to 7% of our body weight. So if an individual weighs about 200 pounds, they should be trying to lose about 10 to 14 pounds, and that's where someone like myself is available to help them do that, because it's not always easy losing weight at all.
But those are obtainable goals, obviously, that you can strive. You don't try to do a fat diet or try to lose all the weight at once.
No, not at all. Yes, fad dieting is really not a good idea at all, because what we find with most people who do fad diets is they lose the weight quickly and then they put it back on plus extra.
And there's a strategy around maintaining the weight once you lose it as well.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about the physical activity, because that's part of the strategy to help you keep it off.
And our guidelines in the country are to exercise at least 150 minutes per week. So how that would break down is if, let's say, you're just starting out and it's hard for you to do all of that at once and you wouldn't want to do that. But if you can't get through, let's say, an hour's worth of exercise, maybe you can do about a half an hour. If you can do that 5 days per week, that's an excellent strategy to start out. And if that 30 minutes cannot be done all at once, you can break it out to 10 minutes at a time. So at least you can go for a nice walk for 10 minutes, maybe in the morning. If you go to work and you have time to walk, like maybe for lunch, you can take a 10-minute walk. And then when you come home after work, you can walk for 10 minutes in the evening, maybe after dinner.
So 30 minutes is a good strategy, 30 minutes a day.
30 minutes a day.
Let's talk about some of the other strategies that we should implement.
We can talk about sleep. Sleep is really important, and I think that as Americans, we underestimate the value of sleep. So many of us will say, oh, I can exist off of 5 hours of sleep a night or 4 hours of sleep per night. I mean, we're all guilty as charged, right?
Oh, yes, definitely.
But the importance is to get at least 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. So what we should do is count down, when do we need to wake up in the morning, either to go to school if we're a child, or actually to go to work if we're an adult, and then count backwards, and that's what time you should be going to bed. closing your eyes and going to sleep.
It's something that many of us overlook, but it's very important for good health and a good strategy for good health.
It is.
Let's talk about stress management, another one of the steps that we should be looking at.
And stress is huge because stress, no matter, we're doing so many other good things, but if we have a high stress lifestyle, or let's say we have a lot of stress on the job or at home, that can affect your health, incredibly. So think about heart disease or stroke and having a heart attack or a stroke as a result of stress. That's important. So finding ways to manage it, and even if you need help from your medical provider, that's important.
Yeah, sometimes you can't handle it on your own, as you usually need help to be able to deal with the stress.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about some of the other strategies. The medical checkup, very critical.
Extremely critical. At least once a year, we should be going to have an annual checkup. Because if we don't know what may be going wrong with us. And included in that medical checkup should be some blood tests, blood results that we get. And I know that it's not the most fun thing in the world to actually get labs done, but it's very important because then we can take the results. And if you are discussing those results with your medical doctor, which the medical doctor would do that, or if the medical doctor refers you to a dietitian, which we hope that he or she does, because we think we're a very important part of the medical community, then we can go over those lab results with you and then determine what a good strategy is for you.
Now, let's talk about one that's probably very hard to do, and that's healthy eating.
Yes.
And, I like my ajo con gandules. My wife's making pernil today, although we don't have it very often. So, but why is it so important to eat healthy, and what should we keep in mind?
Well, the first thing that we never really think about is that we have to put food in our mouth, in our body, every single day. So what we eat, becomes part of us. We hear the expression, you are what you eat, and that is very true. So if we don't take into consideration something that we do on a daily basis, most of the time we should be doing it, actually at least 3 times per day, then we're not really getting the full picture of what could be done to manage our health. And we all have our favorite recipes. I love Latin American cuisine. I grew up in Latino America, and I actually grew up eating a lot of delicious things like arroz con gandules and many other things, tostones, which are some of my favorites. But we can't eat like tostones or a lot of comida frita every day. And that can be a big problem for us. So learning how to prepare foods in a much more healthy way, learning how to maybe cut back on salt, which is a big problem in the community and actually throughout the United States, that's very important, especially when you're talking about managing high blood pressure.
And certainly there are other ways to cook. Not necessarily everything has to be fried.
Yes.
So you have to look for other strategies to perhaps still enjoy a good dish, but perhaps using a different preparation method so that it could still be healthy.
Well, we can talk about making a delicious homemade sofrito, and that would be absolutely wonderful.
So tell me a little bit about how does one get the services of a dietitian?
Well, one of the things that I have a private practice with 2 locations in New Jersey. And what we recommend is you call our 1-800 number, go on our website, www.tobetterhealthnutrition.com, schedule an appointment. And we work with insurance, so that's a really good, beneficial thing. So there's not a lot of out-of-pocket expense. And you schedule an appointment with us, we can sit down with you, we can go through your medical history, we can discuss your eating habits, your lifestyle habits, and then give you strategies so that you can better manage your health.
Sometimes we need that help.
Yes, we do.
Thank you for sharing this vital information with our audience, and thank you for joining us at home once again here on Latino Motion.
Quality, value, distinction. Choose Stockton.
Funding for Latino Motion is provided by Atlanticare, healthcare you can believe in. Atlantic City Electric, energy for a changing world. And South Jersey Gas.